How's it going, man? It's been a while.
It has been a while. Things are good. And not like performative, it's been a while for the sake of the third chair. Like Friends, it's been a while. I feel like the rate at which I have communicated with you over the last 2 weeks is pretty much the lowest of maybe like the entire time I've known you.
Yeah. Yeah, I can feel that. I feel like you're getting your butt kicked by something. It feels like there's an angry bear like living outside your house, and you walk outside and you have to fight it every day, and then you go back in the house, and then there's just no time to talk.
There was an angry animal outside our house, though. The neighbor's chihuahua came running over into our yard and just sprinted up to my daughter and just starts like barking and chirping and running around her feet. And my daughter was fine. She's like, okay. I mean, she had a tennis racket in her hand. She could have taken care of business with the chihuahua. But then this orange flash of glory comes from the bushes, and wham, my cat just ran up and smacked this dog right on the butt.
Tormund?
Yeah, Tormund. And the dog turned around and like, oh yeah, you want some? And Tormund just bap, 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 like lightning fast, 3 to the face, all with the right paw. You know that like quick jab punch that a cat will do?
Oh, yeah. And then they look back like, want some more? And then there's an implied name in there that they say. you know the one.
And then this little turd just goes taking off in the other direction, like scampering away. And the cat's just there like, yeah, I did that. All right, I'm going back to the bush now. And just like, that was it. They just came out to protect the family. It was glorious.
When I was growing up, my buddy Steve-O, best friend, I would go over to his house, and he had this legendary cat named Tango, and it was orange, which is why your story reminded me of Tango.
Oh yeah.
And they tell the story about they would just watch Tango. Like watching Tango was like some kind of, Attenborough film all the time. And they said he was just big, like fat Garfield looking cat. And he's in the front yard one day, and a red-tailed hawk comes down and makes a play on Tango and tries to like kill Tango and take him off.
Oh.
And he does that hit that you're talking about. Bap, bap. And he like almost takes down the hawk.
Could you David Attenborough narrate that for me real quick?
I refuse. I can't. I'm a Southern man. I don't know how to
Oh,
do
you
that.
do Dignity now. Oh, okay. That's fun that we're giving that a try. I feel like you've been deep in the editing hole on this massive, massive project that you're working on.
I am.
And you had some travel. I don't know. I just haven't talked to you for a while. So it's no blame, at least from me. And it's nice to talk to you.
I'm a little nervous about the video, not going to lie. It's about privacy, and it's kind of a extrapolation from the lockdown thing we talked about a while back. I'm just noticing that more and more privacy is being taken away, meaning I have less and less privacy. And it occurred to me that, I don't know, we've talked about all this before. Long story short, I feel like I'm picking a fight with multi-billion-dollar companies, and in the case of Apple, a trillion-dollar company. And I don't know. I just want it to be right. I want everything to be sourced. So this is the one video where I'm going to literally source everything. So we'll see how it goes. I'm nervous. It's not the kind of video you make if you want your YouTube channel to grow.
You're going to pack a fight. I love it. I'm so excited about this video, dude. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think there could be repercussions for you suggesting that the big tech companies are not entirely our friends?
I don't know what could happen, man. And that's what's so scary. I have no clue. It's interesting to think that the people I'm talking about in this video are literally like the ones in control of like the distribution of the video. Yeah,
yes, they are.
So I don't know. Our interests are not aligned. We flew a drone over a couple of data centers just to tell people this is in your backyard. You don't know it, but you could drive to one of these right now, and they've slowly been being built all over the place. And it felt weird. It felt sneaky, like we were doing something and we didn't. You always heard the song "Smoking in the Boys' Room" or whatever. If we were in a van and we were flying the drone from inside the van, and
we're in the van.
We literally were.
Did the van have windows? No. Did the van have windows?
Not in the back where I was standing. It didn't.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That was over the Facebook data center. There's a big Facebook data center here in Huntsville, and there's a big Google data center in Jackson County, Alabama. And interestingly, The Google data center is built on U.S. federal government property. Don't know what that means.
Wait, I thought it was a private company and that private companies can do whatever they want.
I don't know, man. All I know is I'm like, let's just see who they bought who paid for the land. Let's just figure that out. And then we looked it up and we're like, whoa, there's been no taxes paid on this land in a really long time, in like 6 or 7 years. What's up with that? And then we got to look, and sure enough, it's owned by the government. That's weird, dude.
Well, I guess I got a question. Like, usually when people give something of incredible value to someone else at no price, there's some kind of kickback on that. I just wonder what that would be. Well,
you got to be careful because you can quickly descend into what feels like tinfoil hat territory. And like for example, I will correct you on that because there literally is a price. So in order for Google to provide data to the government through a backdoor data request, Google has a price for that. It's $60, or at least it was earlier this year. So like if you are tasking Google to dig through the archives and provide data, then they're going to charge you for it. And so that, I don't know how often it happens, but I know it's often enough that there is a price tag. It's a line item in the budget, which tells me it's too much. Yeah. And so it's
not
what's
just
in
those data centers?
I don't. I know there's a lot of metadata. I know there's a lot of actual data and documents and emails and stuff like that. It's not just Google, and that's something I want to be clear about in the video, and that's the hard part, is making the video throw a pitch right down the middle. I want to throw a strike, but at the same time I want to be honest and fair, and I don't know. Just in general, I think the evil that we are doing to ourselves is that we are storing our data everywhere, and we're not allowing it to die.
Is that the part where the evil happens? The don't allow it to die?
Well, let's put it this way. That's the thing we're doing that's not intelligent. How about I say it that way?
Okay. And then theoretically, evil could flow from that because we were not smart and we are, to use the Bible term, casting our pearls before swine. You're taking that which is precious and you're just leaving it out there. 99.99% of people are going to be real cool with that. All it takes is somebody who isn't, and you got a problem. And that's one of the real issues I have with it is I know what's in that data center, enough to destroy the lives of pretty much every person who's listening to this conversation.
Well,
there's something
that's the
in
thing.
Those data centers that could wreck you.
It's not casting your pearls before swine because pearls are perceived as valuable to the holder of the pearls, and swine are people that don't know how to deal with the pearls, right? So it's like the inverse of that. Are we going to say that's an analogy or a metaphor or a proverb or parable? Whatever that is.
Illustration, word picture?
Yeah, it's the inverse of that because what we're doing is we're casting our dung before hyper geniuses is what we're doing. And they're going through it and they're reassembling everything about our life. I mean, it's the reason that the President of the United States, it's the reason that when he goes to a foreign country, this is not an exaggeration. As I understand it, my understanding is they keep the feces of the president wherever he goes, because if it were to end up
now?
Yeah, this is a thing. So it's my understanding that the people that protect the president, like if he is in a different country, they will. I have to fact check this. I don't know it like in terms of this is my source, but I've been told that they collect the feces of the president because you can extract a lot of important health information from that. What's the Billy
that Smart Pipe video?
Like the what video?
Well, so there's a video for a product called Smart Pipe that correctly anticipated everything about the deterioration of society like 6 years ago. It is made by Adult Swim. It's maybe the best thing on the internet other than the Drug Stopper. But there is a person whose job title is a presidential turd wrangler. That's their job. They collect and handle and document and catalog the turd while he travels overseas.
I don't know if this is a reputable source. The Daily Caller, that doesn't sound reputable. How the president and other world leaders poop despite blah, blah, blah. Basically, it says, this is implying that that's valuable information. The Secret Service shelled out $7,100 in order to rent the president's personal luxury portable restrooms for an August 2017 trip. I don't know what that means. I just know that the point is, let's just say, for example, I didn't bring that up. But my point is...
But you did.
I totally did. My point is we are giving away what we perceive as non-valuable information in the form of metadata, and that data is being stored as part of our permanent digital record.
I'm no longer joking. The language you just used is all the language they used in the Smart Pipe.
Really?
Gag. You need to go watch it. It's prophetic. Everything you just said. Like it turns you into a valuable piece of data. And that makes me feel powerful. They're making fun of the gullibility of the populace. The idea is that there's a pipe that you connect to your toilet that is Wi-Fi enabled. It scans your unique anal signature to make sure it knows who's defecating in the toilet. And then it sends data about like nitrites or blood in your stool off to some data center. And you can even have it automatically tweet local hospitals if it detects Lyme disease. Like it's really funny. But what they anticipated as being jokes, there's actually a Smart Pipe product now that feels like it's like that would be the moment where we jump the shark into, well, maybe at some point we might want to back off of this relationship we have with technology a little bit, but that doesn't seem to be happening. That's not where you were going. I'm going to be quiet now, but watch the Smart Pipe thing. It's amazing.
It appears that a while back there was a portable restroom flown into Vienna, Austria, for a visit by President George W. Bush. And they took his feces and urine back to the United States. I have no idea if these are credible sources or not. It's rumored to be a thing. I just know that today, what do you do when you go to the doctor? You provide urine and in some cases stool samples, and there's information to be obtained there. And it's important enough information that it would be desirable for your doctor to do to you. So, I mean, logically, it makes sense. So it's interesting.
When this stuff all started to become a point of conversation, I remember thinking, I just don't understand what the upside is. Data cannot be that valuable. Like, what, you get a few clues about people's shopping habits or what order they drive around town to run errands that might help you position your McDonald's better or something. Who cares? But increasingly, as I've got to know a little bit about Facebook marketing, I've got some friends who are working really hard on that particular platform. The more I'm understanding, oh my goodness, this is the key to everything. It's almost like theistic determinism in terms of how predictable behaviors become when you have enough data to dump into that machine learning algorithm, that it's almost like free will goes away and the robot can predict exactly who you are and how you will behave when presented with this thing. If you, person who has the profile of Destin Sandlin, are presented with this opportunity 31 times, you will take it one of those 31 times. The machine says so. And what's horrifying is the stuff that I'm looking at that indicates that that statement is true.
Yeah.
I can be reduced to behavioral data enough. It's not scary that they have the data as much as it is that it's right, that I am that I am that predictable. And if they do those things, they will get that behavior out of me. What are the implications of that?
Well, I think what's really scary about that to me is that I believe the human heart is wicked. And I say that out of my own experience from my own heart. So, yeah, there are things I want to do that I don't, and there are things I don't want to do that I do. That's the simplest way I can say it. And what's so interesting, if you go to Instagram and you pull up Instagram, and at the bottom is right currently as we record this, it's the second icon from the bottom. There's a little magnifying glass. It's interesting to think about. They use a magnifying glass to mean search. So, boom, we hit the magnifying glass. And so instantly I pull up it says, okay, this is what I think you're into because this is what you're using this for. The first thing at the top, it gives you a couple of different categories. The first one is film photography.
Whoa.
The second one says martial arts. Then it says electrical hacks. And the next one says fitness motivation. And then there's one that says satisfying slime. I have no idea what that's about. Room ideas, mechanical bull, lomography film, custom keyboards. Have you pulled it up on your phone?
Yes, I have pulled this up, and apparently I don't use Instagram as much or as predictably as you. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Because this is me. Number 1, skateboard. Huh? I mean, that's how I lost my front tooth, but I haven't been on one of those in a while. Number 2, love poems. Number 3, bread baking. Number 4, sewing pattern. Number 5, wallpaper. This is not me.
That's interesting.
You got me confused with somebody else, Instagram.
So here's the scary part. If you've watched Social Dilemma, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So the thing that's interesting is they can tell how long you scroll across an image. So that's one of the data points that they collect on you. When your thumb scrolls up, if you pause on a certain section longer than others, it'll take that information and be like, oh, there was something there. There was a glimmer. It's like when you make a video or you take a picture and you put it in front of someone, you're like, hey, what do you think of this? And this is one of the things I do when I edit a video is I'll play the video and I'll say, hey, what do you think about this? And I'll play it for them. And the person thinks that I'm waiting to hear their thoughts afterwards, and I'm totally not. I'm just watching them watch it. And I'm watching the little micro expressions of their face. Did they smile? Did they look at their phone? Oh, their phone rang. Did they ignore it? Did they look at that? What happened?
Yeah.
That's what is being weaponized right now. And so what I found in I'm just going to lay myself bare here a little bit. Because I'm attracted to females, I found that even if you're not clicking on certain images, if you pause and you're like, oh, what is that? And you just, that whatever is going on in your brain when that happens, like, what? I'm an animal, and this is my animal response to that, is to stop and look a little bit longer. That response, it was being weaponized. And this is the main reason I deleted TikTok from my phone. I was like, okay, I just don't like what's happening here. And so somehow the algorithm quickly figured out that I'm a guy that's attracted to females, and I like photography. And apparently every once in a while my daughter gets my phone and looks up horses. Because pretty soon I was getting film photographs of pretty ladies on horses. That's what would come up when you click search to go find something else. And I was like, what is that? Oh, and by the way, I really like mechanical things apparently. So the things that really get me are when a wire is being extruded. Have you seen these machines? They're CNC spring making machines. And so on one side of the machine...
Yes, I have.
Yes! Oh, they're amazing.
Dude, that stuff is not my thing, but it's kind of my thing.
I know.
I cannot get enough of fabrication. I will sit there and watch that go on forever, all the way from something simple like just an extruder that is melting metal and causing it to pop out in a spring fashion, or complex fabrication. Like, I'll watch that. I'll watch power washing videos. I'm definitely subscribed to r/power washing porn. It's just unending videos of things that are dirty getting power washed, and I just stare at it. I don't know what my problem is.
That's the scary part. It taps into the lizard brain in a way that you wouldn't articulate. You wouldn't sit down and if someone presented you with the options like, hey, Matt, here's what we're going to do. So would you choose to sit here and watch this video of a man in what appears to be Cambodia turning a gourd with one hand and shaving off the outer skin of it with the other? Would you like to sit there and watch things like that for like 10 minutes? Or would you like to, get caught up on emails? What are you up for? And you're like, well, I mean, obviously I'm going to pick the emails. But no, you're going to sit there and you're going to watch the dude shave the gourd.
I am. Dude, but it's not the gourd. It's an incredibly sharp hand planer.
Yes.
That's what does it.
I
An
know.
exposed hand planer on perfectly treated, like exactly the right degree of humidification wood. Oh, shave that off into those perfect wood curls. I think you could put that in front of me and crimes could be being committed outside and I would just let those crimes go because I got to see those wood curls.
I was bringing this up to my friend just this morning, and I was like, I do not like the fact that they keep all this data. Like, how do you even archive that data? Is there what does that file look like? Is it Matt watched shaving wood curls for 13.5 milliseconds longer than the photography thing? Like, what does that file look like on me? That there's a permanent digital record somewhere about me, and I don't like that.
You're not allowed to see it.
No, can't see it. That I don't pay for the product. I don't pay for Facebook. I don't pay for Instagram or WhatsApp or Google or YouTube.
But I would if they quit harvesting my data.
Oh yeah, wouldn't that be cool? That'd be neat, wouldn't it? So
yeah,
I remember sitting in a marketing class in 2001 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Got a business minor at school, sitting there, and this guy, I don't know if it was economics or marketing, or it was one of the two because they were in the same room. And this guy said, okay, there's this new thing called Google. Everybody knows how it works and all that kind of stuff. Here's the deal. He said, I don't understand the business model of it. This is a professor talking. He said, currently it's free. And they're saying they're going to do it on advertising models. But, I mean, who's going to advertise on the search engine? That's a little weird. So I think in 10 to 15 years that Google is going to be a paid service. And I was like, whatever, dude. I was like, paid service? I was like, I can't see myself paying for this. Like, I can do it for free, so why would I pay for it? And then here we are. So,
begging to be allowed to pay for it, man. Like, I want to pay for the NFL. I watch football games. You know how much of that is just air? It's just fluff?
No.
Football has like 12 and a half minutes of action in an NFL football game.
Really?
I've heard people say 14, but it's like 12 to 14 minutes of actual action in a 3.5 hour experience watching a football game. You see, in terms of just advertising images of one kind or another, north of 1,000 advertisements in that period of time in 12 to 14 minutes of what you're actually there for.
Are those actual numbers?
Complete racket. Yes, I looked them up this week to make those points. If you Google how many ads do you see in a football game, it'll say something like 70 to 120 unique ads in a football game, but it's talking about advertisement spots. I'm talking about ad exposures. And so I had to combine a few different numbers, like how often is an advertisement on the stadium visible while you're watching the game? How, where are advertisements visible on a uniform, like branding, logos, ads, everywhere. The impressions are way north of 1,000 in a football game for 12 minutes of just give me the stuff. Now, let's say you're talking about a 12-minute video of the 10-minute Bible hour. Well, you might be able to see the publisher of a Bible or a book that I have on my desk. You can probably see the word road on my microphone or my mic arm. Maybe I'm wearing a shirt with a logo on it. I might mention Patreon. I guess that's an ad. But it's going to be like 4 things that come up even passively in 12 minutes of what hopefully somebody is there for. For the 12 minutes of what you're there for in football, you have to endure 1,000, give or take a few hundred ad impressions to get what you want. And so for me with football, I would gladly pay for an ad-free version, and I'd pay well to just get that experience. I start an hour after the game starts or 2 hours after the game starts, and then they compress the action and I catch up by the time the game is over. Almost like somebody else does the DVR for me, and I'm spared all of the advertising, and I'll just give you money. I know you need to make money on this. Here's your money. I just want the product.
But you want
and I want the time.
You want to arrive at the end of the game the same time as everybody else arrives at the end of the game, I would assume?
Yeah, that's how I'd like it to be.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be aware of our own hypocrisy sitting here talking about this, though, because that's how we feed our families, with advertisements.
Well, sure, but I mean, Dude, if everybody wanted to come to us and be like, hey, no more advertising. We want a subscription service where we pay this much and it's a lot, and then we get our content, then we would look at a subscription model. But that's not how anybody does it on the internet. And the NFL doesn't do it that way either. But if they did, I'd be very interested.
Yeah. What's really fascinating is that you have to pay to get the cable service brought into your house, and then there's the ads on top of that. So they're kind of making it both ways, aren't they? The difference with, I mean, that's part of the reason why I love Libsyn so much, liberated syndication. I pay X amount of dollars to make a file go live on an RSS feed, really simple syndication, and it goes out there and people can choose to get it or not. I think that's really cool.
And just real quick, for the third chair, to be clear, Libsyn or Libsyn.com is a service that maybe half of the podcasting world uses to publish what you're listening to right now. We use Libsyn to publish No Dumb Questions, and we do it through an RSS feed, and it just goes to everywhere that accesses RSS feeds. You don't even need an app to get this program. You can just create your own RSS feed stream if you wanted to. So just so everybody's up to speed, that's what Libsyn is.
Yeah.
We haven't sung an ad for a long time.
I'm not feeling it.
Really? Is that a fact? That's all the more reason that I'm going to need you to sing the introductory paragraph to this HelloFresh ad, because this episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by HelloFresh. Go.
HelloFresh. There you go. That was great.
What are you doing?
I'm not feeling it.
With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy and fun and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. That wasn't my finest effort.
You weren't going to stop. You really meant that. So,
if you won't do the duty that we've been assigned here,
no,
somebody has to step up.
I know.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just took that and made that their ad for everyone.
Jingle.
Make everybody sing those notes.
I did make a jingle for Boudreaux's butt paste when I was a young father. And
sing it.
Boudreaux's butt paste. Boudreaux's butt paste. It's the best butt paste in the world. Boudreaux's butt paste. Boudreaux's butt paste. Good for boys and little girls. Boudreaux's butt paste. Boudreaux's butt paste. It doesn't go on your face. Boudreaux's butt paste. Boudreaux's butt paste. It goes on that other place.
Even rhymed. You got into the last sentence and I was like, it feels like this should rhyme, but I don't know how he's going to land the plane. You found it with that other place.
Yeah, I know.
Well done.
With an 8-month-old child, they love that. So I have no idea what that has to do with HelloFresh. We continue our rock solid ad sponsorship endorsements here. I will give you a real story about HelloFresh that is a pretty big deal. So we came home from the family reunion, and my wife had to take my daughter somewhere, and it was just me and the youngest daughter and my 2 boys. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to give the boys some money and send them to the grocery store, let them go get whatever they want, and say, you are responsible for dinner. Came back, had a receipt. They had bought chicken. And I thought, you're a kid, your dad sends you to the grocery store and says, just bring back food. You know, I thought, well, they're going to bring back like Hot Pockets and like microwave pizza and maybe corn dogs or something, right? They brought back raw chicken breasts and teriyaki sauce and rice and the whole bit. And they legit cooked chicken teriyaki. We were sitting there eating, and I said, buddy, you really did a good job with this. This is really good. And he said, yeah. Thanks, Dad. It's helping with HelloFresh. I've actually learned a thing or two, and I just went for it. I was like, dude, this is great. You're 12, and you made awesome teriyaki chicken and rice, and I was genuinely proud. And so my point is, HelloFresh is, it's about food, but you're not really getting the food. That's not really the component that's most important to me. It's the time in the kitchen where you're doing an activity and you're learning and you're making things, and it pays itself forward. Like you get good food at a great price, and you get time with family, but you also get knowledge, and that's what I think is so cool about it. So do we have some kind of promo or something here, Matt, we can offer?
Yes, we do. If you go to HelloFresh.com/NDQ14 and use the code NDQ14, you get 14 free meals, including free shipping, which is a lot.
That's a lot. Highly encourage HelloFresh. HelloFresh.com/NDQ14. That's November Delta Quebec 14. And use the code NDQ14 for 14 free meals, including free shipping.
I'm with you. It's time super well spent. It tastes ridiculously good.
Yeah, there's also plenty of options.
Yeah, they're mixing it up a lot and including seasonal stuff. They're doing pumpkin cinnamon rolls right now. So it fits with the time of year in which we are recording this. And so you're not going to get bored of it is the point. You're not going to go and see like, oh, the same three things, pick one. There's just a gigantic variety in however you do things food-wise, preference-wise, it is taken care of.
Yeah, thank you very much for supporting the sponsors. That supports the podcast. So that's it. Making a video. I don't want it to be perceived like I'm picking a fight with Apple, but I am calling out some things that I don't like. You know, they're scanning on phones now, or they're about to try to do that. Are you aware of this?
I am aware of that. Are you talking about the particular bit of legislation that empowers it further?
No, I didn't know about that.
I think that's part of the deal.
Okay.
It's at least part of the deal on the banking side. You've heard about the banking element of that law.
No, I have not.
Oh, I'm glad we're talking. This has everything to do with privacy. This says any transaction over $600 coming or going from any bank in the U.S. is to be reported to the government and logged.
Cash?
Anything. You can't move more than $600 without it being reported.
Huh.
Now, I'm going to give you a guess as to whether or not I have a problem with that.
You know why the number is $600, don't you?
Why is it six? I mean, because of the 1099 number?
Yeah, the 1099, the tax law says that if you pay someone over $600 a year, then they have to pay taxes on that income. I'm assuming that's how they've arrived at that number. But man,
could be.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that.
I don't like it. What do you think will happen if that legislation gets passed? What do you think the first thing that you'll see happen the next day will be?
I don't know.
Bitcoin to the moon. I mean, oh my goodness, dude. If that thing passes, this is not financial advice. It's not. But if that thing passes, take everything you own and put it in Bitcoin.
No.
Oh my goodness.
No. I think
it'll go nuclear.
No, I think there's something you might not understand about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not private. Bitcoin is easy to trace. There are other types of cryptocurrencies that are private. There's one called Monero. There's another one called Zcash, which is my personal favorite.
I trade in Zcash.
I don't currently own any Zcash, but they have a really interesting model in that it's zero knowledge. They have a way that you can own and you can trade Zcash in what's called a shielded transaction. It's very, very interesting how it's all set up. It is the logical end of money. Something like Zcash. I'm not saying Zcash is going to win, but to have a completely uncentralized, completely private digital currency is the logical end. Like if you just sit there and you work the society math problem out, that's where it ends. It ends somewhere like that. And I don't know. It's wild, dude. Privacy is so here's what I know I haven't sent you the video. I sent you the first version, but I told you not to watch it because I've got this other one coming out. Basically, this is my proposal. I'm saying that your privacy is like a boiling frog. You've heard the analogy where you put a frog in boiling water and it'll jump out. You just drop him in, he jumps out. But if you put a frog in water and just slowly turn up the heat, then they die. They don't detect the change in temperature, and then they croak, is what I say in the video.
I don't think that is actually true, but the analogy is a useful expression.
Yeah, exactly. I have no desire to test it, but it's a really interesting concept, and it's a really good tool for telling the story that I'm trying to tell. So I chose it, and it's really interesting to think about what happened. And so what I started to do is I started going back in time and trying to research everything that came up through all this stuff and how we got here. And turns out when the telegraph was created, there were issues with people tapping into the wires and listening to what's going on. And so this goes way back into the 1800s. Intercepted telegrams routinely landed on Abraham Lincoln's desk in the Civil War. And you move forward.
And that's where the term wiretap comes from, quite literally, because it was actually a wire that was actually put down, and you could actually physically connect to the wire and gather and just harvest that code as it passed by, right? We still use wiretap to talk about cell phones, but it's anachronistic. I don't know what the term is, but we're not tapping wires on a wireless phone.
Yeah, you could tap into actual telegram wires. Fast forward to telephones, and I found this beautiful article in the New Yorker, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually buy the magazine. So I started reading up on it, and I found this digital article, and I was like, man, this is really cool. It's the history of how this stuff works. And I was like, who is the author? I'm going to follow him on Twitter. Who's this Meyer Burger guy? Started trying to find him. Oh, he's dead because he wrote this in 1938. And it's interesting. And so I was like, man, can I get a physical copy of this? Because I value physical books more than I used to. And for many reasons, they're unedited and they're like a time capsule of information. And so I found one on eBay and I bought it. And it was beautiful. I just wanted to thumb through all the ads and look at, this is a whiskey ad. This is a, whatever. It's just fascinating. And this is back when the New Yorker was concerned mostly with the people of New York. And, there were individual little things in certain boroughs and areas of town that they were concerned about. But anyway, this is a beautiful article, and it talks about how wiretapping started when a person who used to work for the telephone company came on board with the New York Police Department and said, hey, we should start doing this to catch criminals. And it was very, very effective. Slowly, this happened more and more and more. And then it got to a point where they were allowed to do it. The mayor of New York allowed it, and without any kind of warrants or anything like that. So, in my opinion, directly against the Fourth Amendment in the Bill of Rights. And so,
I don't think it's an opinion. I think you're inarguably correct, but sure.
What's interesting is you can follow this debate throughout history. You can watch major opinions. One of the most amazing arguments against wiretapping, in my estimation, is a senator from Oregon named Wayne Morse. I know you probably have never heard of Wayne Morse because I hadn't heard of him before I went on this little journey, but he's your new favorite politician. He's
okay.
Just trust me, he is. He goes on record. He's like, look, wiretapping is awful. We should not allow this because it violates the privacy. And I think what he called it the free man's castle is what he called a person's house. It's amazing. So I highly recommend that you look into Wayne Morse, senator from Oregon. He started as a Democrat, I believe, or Republican, I forget which one, and he switched parties because he thought about basically politics shouldn't bow to party. You should be principled. And he said, okay, look, if my party is going to fight me on things that are clearly against the Constitution, then I'm just going to flip parties. And so he did. And then he ended up jumping ship there, and he ended up an independent. And he was elected. And so he was an independent in the Senate for a really long time. He was one of two senators that voted against the Vietnam War. Just a fascinating guy. Yeah, you should check out old Senator Wayne Morse.
From that era comes one of the most famous privacy Fourth Amendment Supreme Court cases that we learned about in constitutional law in undergrad. And yes, I had to go and look it up because I, of course, didn't remember the exact language. 1967, Katz versus the United States. And that's the one where the majority opinion, the ruling is that it is unconstitutional under the United States Fourth Amendment to conduct a search and seizure, that is for the government to conduct a search and seizure, without a warrant anywhere that, here's the key language, a person has a reasonable expectation of privacy unless certain exceptions apply. And that reasonable expectation of privacy, that's one of those, what do you call them? Doctrines. It's one of those turns of legal phrase that you hear bandied about quite a bit since, because of course on the leave me the hell alone side, you've got, I have a reasonable expectation of privacy everywhere. None of your business. I own me. You own you. You work for me. You don't get to go through my stuff. You better have a dang good reason. It better go through a public court process. Then we can talk. On the government side, of course, the expectation is, well, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy anymore because you all bought smartphones and you all assented to this. You all scrolled right through that terms and conditions 10,000 times over the course of your life. You clicked that you agree and you moved forward. You forfeited every reasonable expectation of privacy. Why would you be surprised when we jump in and go through your things, monitor your communications and your movements for the greater good? It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. And since it's for the greater good, well, why would anybody be opposed to it? Plus, even if you are opposed to it, you forfeited your right because there is no longer a reasonable expectation of privacy voluntarily per your purchasing decisions. And that's kind of where the rub is, as I understand it.
Yeah, there was another case called Olmstead versus United States, and I don't know it well enough to speak intelligently about it, but that's the one that Senator Morse talks about. I just think, and I hope you agree, I feel like you'll agree, that it's every generation's responsibility to preserve freedom for the next generation. And I think we're doing a pretty crappy job right now.
Yeah. I think we're doing a pretty crappy job right now. But is it because we're inept? Because I don't think we're inept. We're really well educated, and we have access to all the knowledge in the history of humanity except what burned in a couple of libraries 1,000, 2,000 years ago. We have all this knowledge. We have access to everything. It can't be because we're idiots or we don't know enough. Why are we doing it?
You hit the nail on the head, man. Everybody has a magic rectangle in their pocket that has access to all the information that humans know. But that's the thing. It's knowing and understanding. Those are two different things. And then there's a step beyond that, which is wisdom. So this is how I view my quest to get smarter every day, is you start with knowledge, and then you move towards understanding, and then you move towards wisdom. And I'm going to regurgitate something I heard our dear friend, Dr. Steve Bateman, say. I called him and I said, Steve, I need a good definition of wisdom because I'm doing this other little podcast thing and I want to know what I'm searching for. And he said, wisdom is the skillful application of truth. And that melted my brain. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah. I don't want to be unwise and just be like, that sounds great. Let's go with it. And so
that was a dramatic pause for effect for a little.
No, I'm not pausing
there.
for effect. Stop now. I'm thinking about it. That's a big claim.
It is.
Somebody tried to define wisdom, and I got to think about that. I don't know if I'm ready to sign off on that or not, but it initially strikes me as very thoughtful, and at the very worst, a pretty good swing at it.
So we have plenty of knowledge. What we don't have is understanding. The understanding that, hey, if we give away these privacies that we have currently for the sake of convenience and entertainment in our pocket anywhere at any time, surely we can see where that goes. And wisdom is a step further. It's understanding that, hey, once you give people authority to look into everything you do, whoever's in power at the time is going to abuse that authority. That's wisdom, is being able to see that. And we, as young people, I didn't see it when I got my phone out and, signed up for all my accounts. And I can remember where I was at certain days when I signed up for certain accounts. I'm like, oh, this will be fun. What is this? I can remember the young man in Connecticut that told me about this Instagram thing. I can remember sitting in my aunt's house starting this little YouTube channel thing. I can remember all these moments not knowing what I was doing. It was just I had a very, very small view of it. And then wisdom, I don't know, I view it like this, like knowledge is knowing how to operate a rifle, and you're the soldier on the front line of the war, right? You're in the ditch and you can see just what's around you, and you only see as far as you can shoot, and that's kind of it.
Let's go with a more specific example than a rifle. Let's go with a drone, just for the sake of conversation.
Okay.
You have a Predator drone. Knowledge is knowing how to pilot the Predator drone, target things, and fire Hellfire missiles.
Okay.
What's the next stage?
Yeah, okay, so you have the knowledge of a drone, how to operate it, what to do. Okay, then let's zoom out to someone in command. Let's say you're an enlisted person, then you got this officer somewhere. I don't know if drones are piloted by officers. I don't know how it is. And so you zoom out, and then you've got somebody somewhere, and in the old World War II movies, they're wearing a fancy suit, and they've got a mustache and a monocle, and they're pushing these soldiers around on this big map, right?
With a stick.
With a stick. Yeah, you know the guy. A little bit of smoke in the room. Things are moving around. If this was a submarine, we'd be plotting it out on that little clear board thing. You get the picture. Someone who has a more strategic view of the battle. They see how this plays in. Well, we only have one drone over here. We've got our boys over here in a fight, and so we need to draw this asset over there. So they have a little bit more of an understanding of what's going on. Said a different way, situational awareness. And then you zoom out, and you zoom out really, really big, like Earth level big, not to the politicians in control of the battle that's trying to get reelected, and not in any way that makes sense in the current war that's being fought, but to the level where you're like, we probably shouldn't kill each other, because if we do this today, it's just going to make them mad at us now. And then they're going to be mad at us in the next generation. You zoom out to scales that are beyond the length of human lifespans.
Right.
That's the wisdom. So, knowledge is knowing how to do the thing. Understanding is more of a strategic view and how you can do these certain things in a way and how it will affect the whole system that you're operating within. And then wisdom is like the big picture.
So, in light of recent discussions, I like the way you're dividing this out into three parts. Obviously, the first thing is, is it possible? Yep. We invented sky death robots. Those are real. It is possible. We can do it. The knowledge question is the one that's been in debate as we're recording this over the last week or so, which is, how sure should you be before you rain Hellfire missile death from above on somebody? And this week, it feels like we've had an ugly enough event that probably more people are swinging toward, we should be a lot more sure than we were on that one, because we blew up an aid worker and his family on the way out the door in Afghanistan, and whoops. You understand that I'm trying to hold back a little bit because you know what I think about drone warfare, and I'm not trying to pick a fight with planet Earth. It's just the privacy concerns coupled with sky death robots, that's a problem for me. And so you see it get, apparently, at least at this point, it looks like horribly misallocated last time around, but that's still not so much a wisdom call. That's a knowledge call. Was there sufficient knowledge to pass the threshold of initiating an action that causes death in that scenario that unfolded in Afghanistan recently, as we're recording this? But then you're saying there's a whole other level that's not just a binary, should we do it or should we not do it, that is wisdom. Look at the whole playing field. But what does this do to us as humans if we do this? What's the trade-off for defeating evil or a threat versus the reciprocal blowback that comes from defeating evil or a threat in that manner? What does this make us? What does this mean? What does this do? You're saying that is the wisdom level. Am I understanding you right?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think I have wisdom. And so I'm looking at 40 in the next couple days here. I'm going to do this in the Smarter Everyday podcast. I'm going to look at knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And what I want to do is, instead of me being a young person with a magic rectangle in my pocket, thinking I have access to all the knowledge in the world, therefore I'm intelligent, I'm going to suspend that haughtiness, or whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to seek wisdom from people who have a more top-level view of life.
Destin, tell me about the sponsor.
The sponsor for this episode is RAYCON, and they make earbuds, which you should get because they're great. I use Raycons all the time. They have a little pill. They're the everyday earbuds, and you put the little earbuds in the pill, and they jump in there with magnets, and they charge themselves, and they're amazing, and you should get them.
Yeah, they come in different colors, and you can't break them. I mean, maybe you can break them. I haven't found a way to break them yet.
I've accidentally washed them. I've done all kinds of things on accident with them, and they work. It's great.
I've done worse than that. I've let my kids use them, and they're still not broken.
I lost mine the other day, and I was like, where are these things? And turns out we got on a plane to go to Fargo, North Dakota for a family reunion on my wife's side. And turns out my daughter had them. She was like, she had claimed them as her own. And she was using them to watch. Oh, that's a whole nother story. She's watching this thing on Netflix.
No. Hold up the story. What?
Yeah.
What was she watching?
It's called Heartland. It's this girl.
Is it about the horse farm?
Yes.
It's in Canada, and yeah.
And so
she's the horse girl.
Yeah, she's a horse. And I looked at her and I was like, hey, wait a second. That boy looked at that girl entirely too long. And she's like, yeah. And she looked at me and she smiles like, no. It's like, this is unacceptable.
Turn it off. Do not attack Heartland. Do not. I want us to have a good relationship, Dad. I really do. I want you to be the one to walk me down the aisle someday, but you keep attacking Heartland. You're on thin ice.
Has your family watched Heartland?
Yeah, Camilla watched it with the girls all the way through, and then the boy and I would just roll our eyes and moan and go do something else.
I'm concerned because it's like, you can tell it's this boy. Like, I'm looking at him. He's trying to put a saddle on the horse, but he's really just looking at the girl. I'm like, this has nothing to do with that horse. This is all about the way.
What a disgusting monster.
Okay, anyway, long story short, Raycons are great.
What kind of awful boy would be interested in a girl? Something has to be done.
I'm a dad. All right, so if you would
You're
like
a dad.
Raycons, go to buyraycon.com/NDQ and get 15% off your order. Again, that's buyraycon. That's BUYRAYCON.com/NDQ. That's no dumb questions, NDQ, and get 15% off your order.
3 things I like about Raycon. 1, they sound super good, but they start at like half the price of similar earbuds. 2, they got the little squishy gel stuff, so when you put them in your ear, they feel super good. I know that you like that when you go running. And then 3, you got a 45-day happiness guarantee. So if anything feels weird, you don't like it, you're covered on that too. They say they go 32 hours of battery life. And again, I think they're conservative on everything they tell us. I don't know that I've ever run them dry or come anywhere close. 32 hours of battery life, that'll get me through all of my travels on a given trip. I don't even have to do anything with them. They always work. They're always powered up.
That would probably make it through the entire Heartland series. That's a problem for me. All right, so thank you, Raycon, for supporting the podcast. We are grateful. Thank you to you for supporting the sponsor. That helps us do this thing, and we appreciate it.
Apologies to any of you who are in any way involved with the production of the Netflix program Heartland. We're sure it's a lovely show.
Unless you're that boy that puts the saddle on the horse, and I am not apologizing to you.
You monster. BuyRaycon.com/NDQ and you get 15% off your order. We're telling the truth. These are awesome. Get some.
I don't know. When's the last time you saw an elderly person or an old person portrayed in a positive light in any kind of media, meme, or anything like that? When's the last time you saw somebody be like, you know what? Talk to my grandfather. He really spoke wisdom into my life and really helped me get through that thing. When's the last time you saw something like that?
No problem. Anytime I see a portrayal of something non-Western, I saw it in Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings or whatever it's called, the new Marvel movie. There's a portrayal of the relationship between young men and old people. Even there, the normal level of honor and respect that I would expect to be portrayed in a show about East Asia was not present. It was still Americanized and a little bit more flippant than I would expect, but it stood out to me, and I commented to Camilla on it coming out of the theater. I just look at the way they view old people. It's different. So yeah, if it's us and it's our culture, old people, what do they bring to the table? Like, if they're so smart, how come they're about to die? Yeah, youth is everything for us, but in other cultures, that's where I still see it.
It's not lost on me that I'm starting to think this way the week I turned 40.
Old people are pretty good. Old people, they might be a little underrated. Let's slow down.
So it's not lost on me. But I think I've always had that approach. My dad's probably laughing right now if he could hear that. But I've generally found that people that have more experience can kind of give you a shortcut through some hard valleys in life. They're like, hey, I don't know that I would do that. And now I'm not implying that old people are smart. I'm not implying that all old people are wise Yodas that know what to do. I've met a lot of people that I remember one bit of advice I got from an older gentleman at the University of Alabama. He was a professor, and we had developed a relationship over time. And I was talking to him one time about relationships, and he said, well, follow your heart, Destin. That's the best advice I could ever give you. Follow your heart. And I remember thinking in the moment, I was like, boy, that's crap advice.
Okay, that's what I was thinking in this moment. I'm sorry.
I know my heart enough to know that that's not the thing to do. So anyway, there's some discernment that has to happen. But if I have judged a person to be wise because of, what they've told me in a moment and I didn't understand it, turns out to be true, if I've had enough time, and it usually takes me time to understand how smart a person is in this way, if I've had the time to run that equation, I will gravitate back to that person in a selfish way. I will say, hey, Uncle Mike, that's one of those people. Uncle Mike, I've got this thing that I'm doing, and I just want to talk to you about it. Will you please just talk to me? And always, not only are they happy to do it, they're excited to do it. And they often bring information from an angle I had not thought of. It's just something I covet so much now is time with people like that.
Yeah, to your comment about not all old people are wise, I think that's really prudent. And I was about to jump in and say, yeah, and some young people are really wise. But I think I'd like to caveat that a little bit differently. If a young woman or a young man is wise, they got that from somebody else. And there's no shame in that. It means that they had one element of character or wisdom that they needed, which is the ability to think outside themselves and to realize somebody else has already been through the thing I'm trying to figure out, and they know stuff. So since you're not old enough at a certain point to have gathered tons and tons of wisdom because you just haven't been autonomous, you haven't been doing your own thing very much, if a younger person is wise, I feel the bulk of that is learned. It's from somebody else. If an older person is wise, some of it's from other people, but you also know some of it is from seeing massive patterns that you can only really observe over the course of decades of adulthood, over the course of the coming and going of 50 generations of fads that buzz by every 6 months or every year. I just can't know those things because I have not seen them. There haven't been enough years for me to see them. And so anything that I observe about that is from a distance, but there are people much older than me who have the time buffer bar has rolled by long enough for them to perceive time relative to the unfolding of things in a way that I simply cannot know. So if you're younger, I think, and you're wise, the vast majority of that has come because you've listened to wise people. If you're older and you're wise, I think some of that's from other people, but probably a lot of that is a function of paying attention to what's happened around you in your life. And I can't duplicate that without having been on the planet the same amount of time.
Did you have any people in school with you, like when you were younger, that you could tell they were wise? Like they had they just had that air about them? Like they knew things and they weren't going to get tricked by the same social pressures as other people. You have people, like, can you tell me a story of a person like that?
Yes. There's a pastor in Alabama named Dalen Woodall. He's 29 years old. He's a pastor of a historically black church in Decatur, Alabama. Have I told you about Dalen?
No, I haven't heard of Dalen. Who is he?
Great guy, talented man. We should have him on sometime. So what everybody says about Dalen when they listen to the podcast or have seen him on other stuff that I've done with him is they're blown away when they find out his age because he's wise. He's got good ideas. He thinks about things in a way that goes beyond knowledge, to use your framework. But the thing you'll notice about Dalen is that he stands on the shoulders of giants. He has had the foresight, the wisdom, the training. Maybe he was forced by people in his life. I don't know how it happened. But he has absorbed the words and the thoughts, the distillations of the best ideas of thousands of women and men who have come before us. And he might not know everything that each of those thinkers thought, but he's like a wisdom harvester who grabs a turn of a phrase or a poem or a thing they thought or did that is a concentrated version of what they dedicated their life and their powers of observation to trying to get over the course of their existence. And so it's like when Dwight Schrute suggested that he consumed his twin in the womb, and then he gets all the power of a little baby, and it's like that. It's like you absorb all of the mind power and experience of wisdom of somebody else, and when you hang out with Dalen, you're like, you just shouldn't know that much stuff. You should not have that much good judgment, but you do. But it's kind of not yours. You're borrowing it from Aristotle. You're borrowing it from George Washington Carver. You're borrowing it from Dr. King, and that to me is a great example of someone I know right now who's a young man and who is very wise. In college, I'd say the same thing. The people who were wise had a stillness about them, a humility about them, and an awareness that the people who had come before them and are now dead knew something they did not know.
It's really fun to think about that. Yeah, I totally agree. Dalen is that way, obviously. I remember there was a young man named Bo in high school, and he just observed the world differently. And I remember him telling a story about beanie weenies in a can in driver's ed. Mm-hmm. And the story and the outcome is interesting, but it's not important. It's the fact that he arrived at it, which was so interesting to me. We were talking about beanie weenies, and he was a farm boy. Spent a lot of time working on the farm, hauling hay, that kind of stuff. And I was talking about beanie weenies one day. I was like, do you like the original or do you like the barbecue beanie weenies? And we were in class, like in between driver's ed students going out or whatever. He goes, yeah, I think I like the original or something like that. I'm making this part up. But I will never forget what he said. He said, you know that beanie weenies, when you open the can, all the hot dogs are on top, right? And I said, no. He said, yeah, they float. They're more buoyant than the beans. And so if you want your beanie weenies to be like consistent throughout, an equal ratio or whatever of beans and hot dogs, I take mine and I flip them on the shelf in the pantry. And then depending on how long before you eat them that you flip them, you can get the beanie weenies to be consistent throughout the can. So you can just open the can and eat them, and you don't have to push the hot dogs down into the can. And I just remember mouth agape looking at this guy, thinking to myself, you observe the world to that level? Like what are you? You're hauling hay. You're wearing boots right now. You got a belt buckle on. You're the most country dude I've ever met, but you're making these casual, very sophisticated, in-depth observations, and you're taking action on them. And dude, we're learning how to drive. We don't know anything in the world. I couldn't articulate all those thoughts. I just remember thinking, man, he's smart. But looking back, I mean, he had access to types of thinking that I just did not, and still don't. I mean, he's just an impressive individual. So I don't know, man. You know these people when you come up on them, they just smell different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not sure your Bo story rises to wisdom, though. I mean, I'm not trying to push back too harshly, but based on your own structure, I think what you just described was knowledge and understanding. He had knowledge of buoyancy and the relative buoyancy of beans and weenies and the solution in which they floated. And that brought him to a place of understanding where he figured out that if I want it to be more like this, I can make this move and it will work. And so to me, that sounds like the beginning of wisdom, like somebody who would be in a place where their curiosity would cause them to listen to a perspective from a more experienced person or from somebody who's already dead and gone. And I'd be interested to know how Bo turned out. And does he just spout wisdom now? Does he see the same patterns in people now that he saw in beanie weenies when he was 15?
Yeah, I don't know.
What does he think about the world, morality, ethics, faith, belief, disbelief, relationships? Like, I bet he's an interesting dude.
I bet he is. I don't know. That was the skillful application of truth. It was a very small truth, but he took the time to apply it. I'm not saying that flipping over your beanie weenies indicates wisdom, but it certainly told me that this person was different. And I don't know. I want to be more like that. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast thing. And I'm going to be interviewing people and stuff like that. And I'm also just going to leave room for knowledge and understanding too. It's like today we're going to learn the phonetic alphabet or whatever it is. I don't know what I'm going to do.
What do you know about it so far? Do you know like publication rate or anything like that? Have you thought that stuff?
No, not at all. I just I've made a goal to upload the first episode on my birthday when I turn 40 because I wanted to say that in there. Like, hey, I'm going to upload this and don't even know how long it's going to be. Don't know anything, but we'll see what happens. And so I might not upload another one for 6 months. I'm going to leave that open-ended. So we'll see.
All right. Well, I bet this podcast recording comes out after your birthday. So we should send people there. Where are they going?
I have no idea. There'll be a link.
Be smart. You're citizens of the internet. Go find Destin's
It's just going to be called Smarter Every Day. How's Ironwood Rhino going?
It's really fun. Golly, man. We had an episode the other day where a guy, an NDQ listener, called in. I'd never met him before. And he tells me the story about this like banshee-like shriek that he heard at a lake house one time. He heard it 3 times. It freaked him out. He got up. He mustered the courage to go outside and look. And so I heard the story. It was spooky and fun. A neighbor heard the sound too. And we spent 15 or 20 minutes on the podcast workshopping what that might have been. And it was really satisfying because we got to a place of like, well, we figured it out. This is what made the noise. Like it wasn't some disembodied spirit of a heartbroken woman that roams these areas at midnight. Like, no, there's a perfectly logical explanation for what you probably heard. And it's getting really fun to try to get to the bottom of what all of the goofy outlier stories are. So I don't know. Like I'm having a blast.
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. Well, dude, we got to
thanks for
asking. We got to do the Hobbit. Is that what's coming up?
Yeah, that's our next conversation, and that's been difficult for me. I've got 2 things that have been on my mind that I want to talk to you about. One of which I think might need to be the episode after the Hobbit, because I really need to tell you a story about a thing that happened to me, an embarrassing thing that happened to me. But I'm not going to do that now. And then we got to get into the Hobbit, and I got a bajillion thoughts.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I'm excited for your video. Do you know what you're calling the video yet?
I don't. I'm leaning towards something like our privacy is like boiling a frog or something. I don't know, man. The thumbnail and title game is the hardest part. It really is. Like the title of this podcast. What do you even call this?
Writing the privates.
Well, we have noticed that people, let's just say it. People tend to listen to the podcast more if we title the episode a question, right?
And if it's a question and it's a little bit salacious, the numbers bear out. People are more likely to listen. Yep.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's reality. I've actually thought about going back through and proposing names to every episode in the entire podcast history to you that isn't a question, to change them all to questions, just to even it out and mess with everybody. Like, haha, now you can't pick and choose. They're all questions.
Well, the joke's on you, third chair. I've actually been tracking all of your data for years, and when you slightly pause on that Instagram photo, I know what you're interested in, and it's cutting Play-Doh with razor blades. That would be scary if like one day people had access to what you're thinking somehow, that file, that secret file, and they could change their thumbnails and titles to tailor just to you. That'd be terrifying.
And that's all the way back to the initial point. And your question, I see where you're going. It's valid. That's the thing right there. I don't want you to know all my thoughts. I don't say all the things to you on the phone. I especially don't say all the things. As much as I've enjoyed every single person that I've met from the third chair or interacted with on the internet. I mean, really, I haven't met, you guys aren't turds. You're great. This is genuinely fun, and I genuinely like you. But you don't need to know all my stuff. And Destin, you know more of my stuff than just about anybody, but you don't need to know all my stuff, because some of my stuff I think, and then I don't think like 3 minutes later. And I don't want to have to own what I thought for 30 seconds once. That's not honesty. That's not integrity. And, well, if the internet is effectively directly tapped into my brain, it means that there are things that I have thought or entertained or an idea that I explored that then I was like, no, not that idea. But according to what the internet thinks, which only measures my interest level, it might think I think that idea. And no one needs to know that. It's too much knowledge. Nobody needs to know that. My soul is mine and God's.
It's like a right to change who you are so that there's no digital permanence. So like...
Yes.
Yeah, we make the point in the video. We say we're flying the drone over the data centers from the back of a van. This is the part that I think, I think big tech's not going to like that. Well, isn't that weird that I'm flying a drone over a data center and it feels sneaky and they have like everything about me in that data center? That's weird. Anyway, long story short, we're flying over and we make the point. We're like, what's interesting about what's in here? Good things like the fact that we uploaded this video is probably here and you're probably watching it because it's here and that's great and convenient. But there's also bad things like the metadata from your GPS on your phone, which turns out can tell people where you slept last night and also tell people where someone else slept last night and if it was next to you. You do realize that's a thing though, don't you?
Oh, yes.
Do you know about location-based subpoenas or warrants? Do you know about that?
I've seen that percolating. Yeah.
Basically, a crime takes place and they can say, okay, what cell phone was within this location within the last 24 hours? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. And also, I haven't researched it enough and I'm not going to be able to speak intelligently about that. So the wise thing for me to do is hold my tongue until I have researched this topic.
Look at that. You just, in one comment, perfectly tied a bow on everything. And anything I say now will only make it worse. High five, man. This is a fun conversation.
Yeah, it was
Thank
really
you.
fun.
Right in the privates.
Right in the privates.
Yep. Thanks, buddy.
Have a
nice
good
to
one.
catch up. All right. See you.